built a design consultancy to $50 million in revenue in 7 years. Most consultants don't see that much in their entire careers. Most painfully chew glass and stare into the abyss, never seeing a dime for all the pain, sweat, and real tears of the harsh reality of entrepreneurship. So, how did I do it? It all comes down to the 4 levels of business. In this video, I'm breaking down all 4 levels, what goes wrong at each stage, and exactly what you need to do to get to the next one. Because if you're stuck right now, it's probably not a talent problem. It's a level problem. Level 1, the scrapper, $0 to $250,000. Day 1 in recruitment, the founder sat me down in front of a computer, handed me a phone book and said, go find some jobs. I didn't know the industry. I barely knew how to use LinkedIn. So I just started cold calling. 6 months in, the global financial crisis hit. Every person I was calling was losing their job. No one was hiring. My position got made redundant. That was my introduction into business. Got another job at a place I won't name. Spent 2 years learning it properly. Got good at headhunting niche technical roles. The kind where there's maybe only 3 people in the whole of Australia that can do the job. Finding that person that no one else could, closing the deal, getting the result, that's the part that I really loved. But I'd always wanted to start a business. I didn't know what, I just knew I didn't want to work for someone else forever. My first idea, import kitchen sinks from China. I flew out there, did the research, resigned from my job, and sat at home waiting for the first shipment. While I was waiting, I'd figured I'd tried recruiting on my own, just a laptop and a phone. First month, I placed a software developer, Jacob, with a company called Redbubble. $16,500. My old salary was $60,000 a year. And that is when I realized I had no idea how to actually collect the money. I didn't know how to invoice someone. So I messaged a guy who'd been trying to headhunt me for weeks. Told him I'd take his call if he showed me how to write an invoice. He thought he was poaching me. I just needed someone to show me how to get paid. If this is you and you haven't made the jump from 9 to 5 to completely on your own, I get it. This stage is brutal and nobody talks about that honestly enough. You're making it up as you go. You don't know if what you're doing is going to land. Every time you pick up the phone to do a new call, there's this voice going, why would they want to work with you? You haven't got a track record yet. You're a startup. And underneath all of this fear, what happens if it doesn't work? What happens if I have to go back and get a job? What will people think of me? The psychological battle doesn't let up until you've got consistent revenue coming. And until then, every small setback feels like the end of the world. Here's how you know you're still stuck at level 1. You're waiting for permission. You're waiting for the perfect idea, the perfect time, the perfect plan. You're building a website before you've talked to a single customer. You're designing a logo before anyone's paid you $1. At level 1, your only job is to find people who genuinely want what you're offering. Not sort of interested, not maybe later. People who will pay you right now. Paul Graham wrote an essay called Do Things That Don't Scale. And the idea is simple. Almost every business we admire started with something embarrassingly scrappy. Airbnb was an air mattress in a spare room. Shopify was an online store for snowboards. The mistake at this stage isn't starting small, it's being ashamed of starting small. To get here, sell one simple thing. Not a product suite, not a platform, just one offer that solves one single problem. Then talk to at least 30 real customers, not surveys, actual conversations. Ask them what they need, what frustrates them, what they'd pay money to fix right now, what would they pay to have. Take that feedback and fold it back into your offer until people stop saying, that's interesting, and start saying, how do I buy this? And start building your personal brands now. Put out content, even if it's rough, even if nobody's watching yet, because distribution is the one asset that compounds from day 1. And most founders don't realize that until it's too late. Level 2. The operator, $250,000 to $1 million in revenue. So work was picking up. I'd carved out this niche recruiting Ruby on Rails developers, and a few growing companies started giving me repeat work. More jobs meant I needed more people to help me deliver. So I started hiring, and that's when you learn the better you do, the more business demands of you. The more staff to fill roles, more people to support those staff, finance, ops, admin. Suddenly, you're not the salesperson anymore. You're the kitchen cleaner, the accountant, and the HR department, all at once. But inside that niche, I was deep. I knew every company, every candidate, every salary band. Half the market loved me, the other half hated me because I kept poaching their staff. I cold messaged the CTO at Redbubble when they had about 15 people. Built such a strong relationship that they put me on a $15,000 monthly retainer, plus placement fees, plus a fee for every direct applicant that came through the brand work I'd helped them with. Unheard of in recruitment. So I hired for my team. I got to 10 people, revenue was growing, but so was the stress. We were doing permanent placements. Some months were great, some months were terrible. Fixed salaries, didn't care either way. Every single decision, every client, every problem flowed through me. The team had no idea what we were building. They turned up, because it was fun and they could make some money. I wanted to be liked. So when someone underperformed for 3 months, I'd give them 6. That ate into our profit. It killed the culture. I just couldn't see it because I was too busy being the hero. Then I hired someone who turned toxic. She created conflict across the team, and over a couple of months, the whole thing crumbled. I went from 10 people to 2. And I've got to be honest, I felt like a complete failure. Here's how you know you're still stuck at level 2. You can't take 2 weeks off without everything falling apart. Your phone is the first thing you look at in the morning and the last thing you check at night. You know you should delegate, but every time you try, the work comes back worse than if you just done it yourself. So you take it back and the cycle continues. You probably already know who your bottleneck is. You just don't want to admit it's you. Level 2 is where you have to stop being the best individual contributor and start building the machine. Google run a project called Project Oxygen. They studied what made their best managers effective. Number 1 trait wasn't charisma, wasn't brilliance, it was systems. The best managers built clear, reputable structures so their team could do great work without the managers being in the room. The collapse forced a pivot. We moved from permanent recruitment to contract labor hire, 6 to 12 month engagements. It completely changed the economics. Revenue went from struggling to break 1 million to doing 3 million within 18 months. Same industry, different model, but the model wasn't the real change. The real change was me accepting that the business couldn't be built around my heroics anymore. Pick 5 things that you do every week that someone else could do. Not the things you enjoy, the things you're holding on to because you think no one else can do them as good as you. Open a Google Doc. Write out exactly what you do in each step by step. Film yourself doing them in a Loom so your team can actually see the standard, not just read about it. Then hand each one to a specific person and give them full ownership. Not help me with this ownership, their name next to it, their responsibility, and then check in after 2 weeks. Not to take it back, to coach. That's the shift from doer to coach. By the way, if any of this sounds familiar, check out what we actually do in the links below. Now, the next bit is the part people get wrong. Level 3, the CEO. $1 million to $10 million in revenue. The contract model worked. Revenue was consistent, but margins were stuck at 10% and would become generalists. We were recruiting software engineers, business analysts, testers, product owners, anything that came through the door. Every day was a scramble. Every role was different. We were always context switching, always starting from scratch, never building a pipeline that compounded. We were growing, but it was exhausting growth. The hamster wheel had just gotten bigger. Then I remembered a conversation from years earlier. Paul, the CTO at Redbubble, had sat me down and said, recruitment is always going to be transactional. Look at these consultancies, higher margins, embedded teams, better relationships. That had been sitting in my head for years and it finally clicked. So we made the shift, but it wasn't random. Being in tech recruitment, I'd spent years watching what happened when a new skill set moved from startups into enterprise. DevOps was the one that taught me. I watched it go from a niche startup thing to every enterprise in the country scrambling to hire for it. Salaries doubled, the market got sucked dry, and I missed it. But I learned the pattern. So I started evaluating what's next. IT consulting was too broad. Security looked promising, but never had the growth curve. Then I saw design. It had been sitting on the edges of tech for about 10 years. The cool kids of the product teams. Not many companies were doing it seriously, but enterprise was starting to build out design teams. Companies were investing in user experience, and the shift was accelerating fast. I knew every company in that world. I knew who had designers and who didn't. Space was completely underserved, wide open. So that was the trend that I jumped on. So we recruited a design director, rebranded and repositioned, and we built a rate card. Instead of clients telling us what they wanted to pay, we told them what a senior designer costs. That one change moved margins from 10% to 25%. Then we got serious about structure for the first time. Sat down with the team, wrote a mission, vision, values, set quarterly priorities, defined a clear ICP. Everyone finally knew what we were building and what they were responsible for. Revenue moved from around 4 to 5 million to 8 million within 12 months. Then COVID hit. Demand surged. We peaked at about 10 million, but then the market flipped. Projects slowed, costs didn't. Revenue contracted back to around 5 million. But here's the thing, that single decision to go all in on design consulting and charge what we were worth, that has generated $50 million in revenue over the last 7 years from a business that nearly died 10 staff. Here's how you know you're still stuck at level 3. You say yes to every opportunity because it's revenue. You can't clearly explain what you do in one sentence. Your team is constantly context switching and you're working harder every year, but your margins aren't. If someone asks your best client why they work with you specifically, not your competitor, you, and they can't answer it in 10 seconds, you have a positioning problem. and no amount of hustle fixes a positioning problem. Level 3 is where you stop being the generalist and become a real CEO. That means making hard choices about what you are and what you are not. We had to fire clients. We told companies we'd worked with for years, we only do design, can't help you with anything else. Honestly, that was terrifying. But it was the only way to build a reputation that compounds instead of a business that just churns. At this level, it comes down to 3 things. Numbers. 9 out of 10 founders I talk to can't tell me their profit margin, their cash collected last month, and the total cost of their team. At this level, every decision has a financial ripple. You need to understand it precisely. People. You're not hiring doers anymore. You're hiring leaders who can hire other great people and carry the vision forward when you're not. Culture. If you have hungry, coachable people who care about the quality and the customer experience, you can survive almost anything. If you don't, no strategy saves you. First, define your niche. What's the one thing that you do better than anyone? If you can't answer that, ask your best clients why they choose you. Answer is usually there. Then, build your org chart for the next 12 months from now. Not where you are, where you want to be. Name the gaps. Start filling them with people who are better than you in the area. Build a dashboard, even a Google Sheet. Track the 10 to 12 metrics that actually matter. Revenue, margin, cash collected, pipeline, team costs, utilization. Review it weekly. If you're not measuring it, you're guessing. And guessing at this level is how you end up contracting from 10 million back to 5. And establish a meeting rhythm. Leadership weekly, departments at the same cadence. That rhythm becomes the heartbeat of your company. Without it, you're just a group of people in a room hoping things will work out. Level 4, the architect. $10 million plus sustainably. For years, I was the rainmaker. I built the skill where I could look at the market, pick the companies I wanted to work with, the best brands, the fastest growing startups, and find a way in. I was methodical about it. I'd figure out who made the decision, why they made them, and how to make sure I was the decision they made. And because I'd been in the space for so long, I knew everyone. A new job would come through and I'd already know who to call by name. I could connect the dots faster than anyone. That meant I was always billing the most. Always. And honestly, I liked it. My identity was completely tied to being that person. The one who brought in the biggest accounts. The one who closed the most revenue. That's how I measured my worth. Then something happened that I wasn't ready for. When we made the shift into consulting, I recruited a design director named Phil. And over time, Phil started creating more client impact than I could direct. He was better at the work. He managed the accounts. He interviewed every designer. Clients loved him. And I had this moment where I thought, what am I here for? That's the part nobody warns you about. The moment your business outgrows your ability to be the star. And instead of celebrating that, your ego panics. Here's how I know you're still stuck at level 4. You've hired good people, but you still insert yourself into everything. You say you want to step back, but you keep jumping into client calls, overriding decisions, redoing work your team's already done. You've built a machine that you could run without you, but you just won't let it. Ask yourself honestly, is your involvement still making things better? Or is it just making you feel needed? Level 4 is where you stop being the hero and become the architect. When I finally let go, when I stopped needing to be in every room and across every decision, everything changed. The team does a better job than I ever did. And now I'm building the next thing, a paid acquisition engine. New revenue lines that don't depend on me picking up the phone. Identify your zone of brilliance, the intersection of what you're best at and what only you can do. For me, that's the intersection of people, business systems, and design. Everything outside of that, I say no to. Then ask yourself a harder question. What would your business look like if you disappeared for 90 days? Whatever breaks in that thought experiment, that's your dependency map. That's what you need to solve. And zoom out. Stop asking, how do I grow? Start asking, what's the universe I'm building? Not one product, not one service. An ecosystem where every piece reinforces the others. People don't buy what you build. They buy the experience. They buy the feeling. Apple is creativity. Nike's victory. What's yours? Write a 3-year vision, not a future roadmap, a picture of what your company looks like when it's world class. If you can't articulate it, you can't build it. And if your business only runs when you're in the room, you don't have a business. You have a job with overhead. Every one of these levels required me to let go of the thing I thought made me valuable. The scrapper has to stop doing everything themselves. The operator has to stop being the best individual contributor. The CEO has to stop making every decision. And the architect has to stop needing to be in every room. I've gone from a recruiter to a design consultancy that's generated $50 million in revenue over the last 7 years. And I can tell you, every time I resisted the shift into the next level, the market corrected me painfully. So here's my question for you. Which level are you stuck at right now? And what's the thing you're holding on to that's keeping you there? Drop it in the comments. I do read every one.